Alrighty, so I'm going to get started. So for today's call, just like all the other calls, we typically just go through how to do a tax return in the software. So I'm gonna just start by going through beginning to do a tax return from beginning. So from here, this is what everyone would see once they get logged into the software. They should be able to see start new return. Right now, we're in the upcoming year of 2023. If you wanted to change the year, you'll have the ability to do so at the top right corner to change to any previous year that you have access to. So getting right into it, I'll start with clicking Start New Return. By clicking Start New Return, it does require you um, to do double entry when it comes to social. With doing that, it kind of helps you verify that, hey, you entered your social right twice, entered it right both times. However, if you enter it wrong both times, then it's just wrong. But it does require double entry. With that double entry, it does move right along to the next steps. Moving to the next steps, you should see your client data information. But right now, you're going to see an error, not an error, but a pop-up message letting us know that this is the current year software and that we're currently working on getting the IRS state agencies to incorporate any updates as we receive them. So this software is a cloud-based software. With it being cloud-based, anytime any updates occur, we have the ability to just update the software globally. So any updates that take place along the way, any IRS changes, it'll automatically be updated in the system for you. No need to like transmit to get the download, then download the software and then transmit it again to upload to update the software. All of the updates take place automatically because it is cloud-based. So let's just go ahead and click continue. We're going to get into filing statuses. Filing statuses is going to be type of way that the taxpayer plans to file the taxes. So whether they're single, married filing jointly, married filing separately, head of household, qualifying surviving spouse, formerly known as widower, and non-resident alien. So anyone with the ITIN or green card, they don't have an actual EFIN. That ITIN would be here for a non-resident alien. Filing Tax Wizard is a questionnaire kind of setup that allows you to go through a questionnaire to assist you with selecting the correct filing status. So I'm gonna just go through that, just kind of show you what's there. So once you get an understanding of what the filing statuses are and how they can be selected for the particular taxpayer, you probably wouldn't need to use this anymore. So first, it's going to say you were considered married on the last day of the year. Click no. As of December 1st, 31st, you are a resident or you're a citizen or a resident alien. Yes. Have you ever been married? Say no. Did you pay more than half the cost of keeping a home during this year? Yes. Did anyone did anyone live with you more than 6 months during the year? Select yes. You had a child born during the year or a child under the age of 19 who died during this year. Was this person living with you a senior citizen, resident alien? Not senior citizen, a citizen, resident alien of the US, a resident of Canada, resident of Mexico? Yes. Was the person living with you married? No. Person's relationship will affect your filing status. Do any one of the following describe the type of relationship that the person lived with you has? Child, stepchild, foster child, descendant of them, your sibling. When it says descendant of any of them, meaning grandchild, just to simplify that. Your sibling, half sibling, or step sibling. Click yes. Do any of the following statements apply to the person that lived with you? 18 years or older, 18 years old or younger at the end of the year, 23 years old or younger at the end of the year, and a full-time student during any 5 months of the year. Permanently and totally disabled. So we're going to click yes. Should you provide more than half of this person's support? Yes. Is this person a qualifying child for someone other than you? In this case, we're going to say no. You have a qualifying person. You have a qualifying person. So I'm going to click continue. Is this the only reason you will be able, is the only reason you'll be able to claim this person or dependent because of a multiple support agreement? No. Based on your filing status, you should be filing head of household. So based on those questions that were asked in that filing status wizard, if you kind of remember those types of questions or scenarios, married, no. Single, yes. So if the question is no about married, then it goes to single. But then if you ask a question about dependents, the dependents live with you and you provide more than half the household, then it goes to head of household. Just to simplify it. If you're married, you're going to be filing with your spouse on this return. You're going to file this jointly. If they're married and the spouse is not going to be filing a return with them, they're going to be filing separately. If they were married and they had a spouse that died either 2023 or 2022, yes, you can enter the spouse year of death. Then they will qualify them to file as a qualifying surviving spouse. Non-resident alien, if that question is answered, then you can answer whether they're single, married, or qualifying surviving spouse. So that kind of shows you those different options. Sorry about that. So let's go back to that return. So if in that instance, something like that happens to you and you started a return, but you didn't enter any information, you can always go back to client status, search that return based off of the social because there's no name or phone number entered because that was already taking place. Now, if you have 200, 300 plus returns and it's a lot to filter through, you can search based off of the date from. Date from is going to show you anything entered today or whatever dates that you put in there. So date from, so date to, did yesterday, today. It's going to show us that creation date based off of that search. So at any time something happens like that for you all, that's how you can quickly find that particular return that you were just working on. To go back into the return, we're going to click select. And again, we're going to see that information again. And now we're back to filing status. So based off the filing status wizard, it told us we were head of household, and we're going to begin the return. We'll go ahead and enter some information. So that's the taxpayer's first, last name, social, date of birth. And we're going to go into these questions. If you know the occupation because you ask it, you can enter that here. It's not required. It's not mandatory, but you can enter it there. And from there, I'm going to answer these questions moving here. So from right here, taxpayer can be claimed as a dependent on someone else's return. Since we have dependents, we're going to click, not going to click this box. But let's just say on this return, the taxpayer has a student that's in college, just 23 and under. They can file that student on their tax return, but that student, if that student worked and had a W-2, when you file that student's tax return, this box would be checked because they're eligible to be claimed on someone else's return. So we wouldn't check this for the person who actually is filing this return and claiming that dependent. But if the dependent is filing a tax return and is being claimed on another person's return, that's when this box would be checked. taxpayer was over the age of 18 and a full-time student and eligible for educational credit, eligible educational institution. So basically meaning this taxpayer went to college last year and they um, you can file that student credit for them. Taxpayer is blind, taxpayer is deceased. Deceased taxpayer can still file the tax return. So if in fact someone was filing a tax return for, let's say, their parent passed away and they worked that prior year, they can file that tax return for that particular person, pending, they had authorization to do so. We're not going to go into any legal jargon or things like that, but that is possible. Taxpayer or spouse served in a combat zone during the current tax year. Taxpayer was affected by a natural disaster during the current tax year. So based off the tax, these last couple of years, there's been plenty of natural disasters that take place. So if it qualifies for FEMA, if FEMA declared it a natural disaster, there's a disaster designation on the FEMA website based off of the search. So if you went to the FEMA website, looked up a disaster designation, whether it's a hurricane, a storm, or whatever, that could be added as a designation. Now, if they apply and approve for any credits, that's a different story, but that's the option is there. Taxpayer receives, sold, or disposed of digital assets. So if they did, sold or disposed of any cryptocurrency or any other digital assets, that could be checked off here and then be filed on the return. Taxpayers prefers to receive communication, written communication, from the IRS in any other language than English. So if their primary language is anything other than English, and their language is listed here, and they say, hey, I want my letters to come from the IRS in Portuguese. You can select that. So submit it to the IRS. And once they submit that return, moving forward, any letters from the IRS will come to that taxpayer in Portuguese or whatever their chosen language. Taxpayers prefer to receive communication from the IRS in an accessible format. So standard print, large print, Braille, audio MP3, plain text file, Braille ready file. Those can be chosen there and submitted. So right here, under address and phone number, I have a stateside military address. Check here if there's a foreign address. And then we're going to just go into adding the address. So when adding an address, if there's an apartment, we're going to use this box for the apartment number. We're not going to put it here. I'm going to put that apartment number here. I'm just going to go ahead and use the previous information that I've used before. Then primary client email. So right here, when using the software, the taxpayer has an opportunity to either submit their information via the tax app, or if they come into the office and let's just say hey, I forgot something, I need to go back home and get it, you can invite them to a customer portal, and then with that customer portal, they can take a picture of it and upload it, and then it'll come into the taxpayer's tax return. And in a moment, I'll show you at the top where it'll show scanned documents. So also, we created a customer portal. Even if that's not the case, they need to submit documents to you. You can also invite them to sign their tax return electronically using the customer portal. So from here, we just click send invite. They'll get an email and or text message, depending on how you choose to send it. And from there, they can create a login to their login, create a customer portal. And from there, they can access any documents you send to them or send any documents to you from that portal, as well as sign their tax return. Now, the next thing is going to be dependents or qualifying persons. So right now we're under the basic information tab. There's also a federal section, health insurance, state section, summary, print, and e-file. So as we work through the return, you're going to see this portion transition into that next phase of the return. So yes, we have dependents because we are filing head of household. We're just going to answer those questions accordingly. Now from here, if I had another dependent to add, I can click save and enter another. Once I do that, I can begin. I'll just scroll up, begin entering the other information. Again, if I had another, I can click save and enter another or click continue. And even if I click continue and I still have another one to add, I can always come back and hit the plus sign and add an additional dependent or qualifying child. I'm gonna go ahead and click continue. And from here, if I have the birth certificates, I can attach the list. I can attach the birth certificate to the return. I can attach a death certificate to the return, even hospital records for your dependents. You can attach those there as well. As I click continue, I'll be on to the next step. So identity protection PIN number, it's right here. So if you have a taxpayer that gets a identity protection PIN number every year, if they say, hey, I have an identity protection PIN number, just know they get a new one every year. So if they give you their IP PIN letter from the IRS and it says 2023, that's going to be from last year. They get a new one every year. So they will be required to get an updated one, which is done automatically and mailed out to them. They can also log into their IRS account. If they've ever created an account with the IRS, just log into their client account. And under there, they should be able to access that from the IP PIN website, under the IRS website. And then to click into it, go into it, we can enter that PIN number here. If they need to recover a lost IP PIN, this is basically basic instructions on how to do so. So right here, if they want to retrieve it on their IRS online account, they can do so. Go ahead and click continue because we're not going to add an IP PIN. And now I'm in the incomes documents. So you see, we're no longer in the basic information. We're now under the federal section. Now that we're in the federal section, we can begin to enter their income information. So if they had a W-2, they had a 1099-G, at 1099-R, Schedule B, unemployment 1099-G will be here. Miscellaneous 1099-NEC, Schedule C, 1099-K, so on. All of the income information be listed here. I'm gonna start with the W-2 by clicking begin. I'll begin filling out that information. Again, you want to make sure you're filling it out correctly based on what's on the W-2. Just add some income. Right here, you enter the wages. Social Security wages, Medicare wages are automatically populated. If they're different on the W-2, are able to manually make those changes. So I would advise doing so. So ensure that those changes are made. Sometimes they're different, and you need to make sure that you make the changes when they are different. Next is going to be federal withheld. So adding the federal withheld in there. Again, this is strictly information coming off of the W-2. Social Security tips, allocated tips, dependent care benefits, unreported tips, boxes 12 and 13. If there's anything in there for retirement or insurance, or any of that information, you want to make sure filling that information out as well. If there's nothing else, then we'll move on to the next step. If the taxpayer worked in a state that required the filing of state taxes, that information should be at the bottom of the W-2. And you'll fill that out here. So if there's anything on the bottom in the state information, we're going to make sure we add that information accordingly. Now, if the taxpayer had another W-2, we can click Save and Enter another, or just click Continue. Although we click Continue, again, just like in the dependent, you can also continue to add another W-2 if necessary. I'm going to click Continue. We're going to move to the next step, and I'm going to add a 1099 NEC. So let's just say this person drove where? They should have a 1099 NEC, or if they worked as a day laborer or contractor, some type of contractor for some company, they should have a 1099 NEC. So that non-employment compensation, let's just say they made, I don't know, let's just say $6,400 in driving Uber for the year. Click Continue. Now it's going to ask me where will this income be reported? Schedule C is for business income. And then right here, if on that 1099 NEC, they have like, business information, or they have an EIN number or whatever, you can enter that information there. If they do not, you'll just go straight down here to business type or business code, then find that particular business code. So since they did Uber, we're going to use taxi, limousine, and or ride sharing services. That's going to be the business code. To continue, we're going to go into our deductions. So the income is added because it carried over from the 1099 NEC. So we wouldn't be required to put any other cash income in there unless they say, hey, I did some personal driving, and people paid me cash because I was, I have a black car or something like that, and I offer those services or whatever. You could add additional income if they inform you about it. So next, we have the general expenses. So just like if you've done taxes before, and you've seen a Schedule C, these are the same expenses you would see on any Schedule C. So whether they had advertising, if they have, the thing about the software too, with each one of these categories, you can itemize the type of expense in that specific category. So like advertising, if I click these blue boxes over here, I wanted to do Facebook, and I wanted to say Instagram or TikTok. Let's just say I want to do outside marketing, like I paid a company to pass out flyers or something. You can itemize it. Once it's itemized and you're done, it'll generate that total right here. You can do that on all the expenses listed here. Anywhere you see these blue lines, you can do that. Now, if there's an expense that is not a general expense that you see listed here, once you click continue, click this button that says other expenses. When you click other expenses, you can add, let's just say cell phone. You didn't see that anywhere. Now you paid $100 a month. You can see that there. So continue. So now let's just say car and truck expenses. So since they did drive Uber, and let's just say last year was their first year driving Uber, the year placed in service would be 2024, because this is 24 2024 tax return. So the beginning of this year, they put their car in service. They drove 13,000 miles, give or take. They have record of the mileage that they're telling you. All of that information is there. When I click continue, the mileage has been added and it's been deducted as an expense. Now, if you don't want to, let's just say this person says, I don't want to do my mileage. I would rather do depreciation. Then you could depreciate the value of the vehicle as well. Depending on the scenario, expenses may work. I'm sorry, mileage may work in a better scenario for depreciation. But depending on what they want to do, you can do that either or. Can't do both. So I'm gonna click continue again, and that is everything that we need to add as far as income. So they no longer have any other income.
So from here, we're going to go into any other deductions that are necessary. So let's just say they have someone that they pay daycare for. So they got child independent care credit. So I can click begin here. And let's just say if they had any carryovers from the prior year, do you wish to pull the prior form over? If this is a prior year client, you would click yes, and that those forms or informations will pull over. If it's not, then you wouldn't worry about it. So right here, as the provider's identification number can be a EIN, social, or ITIN. So depending on who you used for daycare, whether it was grandma or a friend or anyone that you paid and you want to file that payment, if it was someone you knew, they would need to provide their social or ITIN. But if it's just a regular daycare, they should provide you with the EIN as well as the daycare, the end of year statement for the daycare every year. You should get that. If they have a phone number, you can add it here. If this provider is my household employee, you would check that box here. If not, we will move right along on to the next step. So right here, both of these dependents qualify for the dependent care credit. So I'm gonna put both dependents. Let's just pay $3,500 a piece for each of them for the full year. I know that's not an accurate number, but that's, let's just say you just paid grandma when you could and she accepted it. $7,000 on the year based off your income. I think that's pretty good. So the dependent credit has been added. Doesn't seem any benefits paid for it, but we added it just to see. Did you receive any benefit credits where your spouse? No. Did you pay any? No. And there we go. Eligible expenses, tax credit amount. And there we go. So we got a benefit tax credit of $373. So now if we don't have anything else, we can go on to the next step. One thing I know for sure we're going to do is the EIC checklist, but we can do that when it pops up automatically. If you wanted to go ahead and select it and do it now because you have dependents on here, you can, but I'm going to show you that it will do it for you later on. Let's just say you forget to do it. You've done your deductions. Now it's going to go into the other taxes field. If there's nothing here, you're going to go to the next one, payments and estimates. If there's anything on the payments and estimates that you need to do. Again, guys, if you have these forms, you would know what these forms were for, and you would know where they would go. A lot of the times, depending on the person's taxpayer status, you may or may not have to use any of that information. So right here, power of attorney. So if we had them to do a 2848, because we wanted to apply for the power of attorney to represent this person in based off the IRS or contact the IRS for that particular taxpayer, we could do that as well. So miscellaneous forms, all of that can be done there. And now we're going to the next phase. Next phase, as you see, is now under health insurance. Did you or your spouse or dependents have Affordable Care Act insurance? We're going to click no. And now it's going to take me to my state section. State sections, states are currently unavailable, but again, like I stated earlier, once you begin to, once the software has begun to update and the states release their particular information that is required for those state returns, you will begin to see those states populate here. So we're going to the next, it should be summary and print. So under the summary print, we can just basically make sure, okay, I had a W-2. If I click this amount, it'll take me back to the W-2s that I added, just so I can see, okay, well, I added everything looks good. If I go back to summary print, it takes me right back to it, and I can just look at everything to ensure that everything's calculating correctly. All the credits, you receive your credits right here, earned income credit, additional child tax credit, and so on. This is your gross amount based off of these credits, and then the additional amount that you receive based off the taxes paid for that return gives us a total amount of $11,992. And we'll go ahead and click continue. And now it's going to say, take me to the e-file page, but since I did not do that due diligence questionnaire, and whenever I showed you that I could, it now generates it for me and I have to complete it now. So I'll go through here and answer these questions accordingly. And you want to make sure that you're answering these questions because you did do this stuff and you did answering it truthfully. So right here, to ask you some documents that you use to satisfy record retention requirement. So to meet the retention requirement, did you keep a copy of any documents provided by the taxpayer that you relied on to determine the eligibility or to compute the amount of these credits? I put yes, so it's gonna, in addition to your notes from the interview, list all of the documents, if any, that you relied on. So any documents, notes, or any information that you want to add right here can be added now. So next, did you ask the taxpayer whether he or she could document substantial eligibility? Did you ask, is this child intended for another? And I'm just going through these questions really quick, and you guys would make sure you read these questions thoroughly to make sure you're answering these questions properly. So I've answered all the questions. Everything is answered correctly. I'm receiving those credits. If you had any additional EIC due diligence notes, you can use this add notes field here. If you had any other notes or miscellaneous statements to add, you can add those here. And now we're at return details. So I had a question earlier about, well, before I go to that, we're going to go into the next steps. So right here under federal return, once you're in your software and your bank product has been submitted and you have a tax bank, whether it's Santa Barbara or Refund Advantage, all of those should populate here. You're going to make sure you select whichever one that's, you find best for that client, whether it's the bank product plus a cash advance with a check, bank product, cash advance, direct deposit, bank product, cash, bank product, check, bank product, direct deposit. You want to select any of those, but that would be in a live environment where you'd actually see that. So right here, I'm gonna just click e-file paper check. E-file paper check is going to be a check from the IRS. If you were to file this return as an e-file paper check, just make sure you collect your funds prior to transmitting. So I have to pay you first. So right here, this is going to be my calculated fees. Fees are generated. Make sure you go over that with the client. And right here it says, don't forget to collect fees. The option you selected is not a bank product, so your fees won't be collected automatically. Don't forget to collect your fees before you e-file this tax return. So that's your last warning, like, hey, you're not going to get paid from this return if you don't collect it from the taxpayer. Right here is where the taxpayer, if they're in the office, can sign with their mouse or sign with a signature pad if you have one. If you invited them to the customer portal, it would say it was invited and they opened it or received it or the date that it was sent. At this point, you can send the document to the portal for them to sign, as well as if they submitted your documents using the Taxes to Go app, then you can use that here. So from there, you can either mark it ready for review, mark it as complete, and or transmit it. So I had one question earlier. The question was, does the IRS see that itemization? And I think that was pertaining to the business expenses on the Schedule C. So if I click right here, click print return, and we can look at that document together. We can go down to, let's see, the Schedule C, and we can show you that information. If I can find the Schedule C. Maybe I patched it up. Let's go back up. Just search. It's here. So here's the Schedule C. There's the advertising and the itemization. No. So the itemization is not there. But in the event that they do review the return in any kind of way, you could show that itemization based off of the receipts that they provided to you in the event of an audit. But it's not required, but it does help you down the line to kind of help the itemization. Next question was, what about receipts? When you're talking about receipts, what are you referring to? Receipts as in, did they provide you receipts? Those receipts should be compiled together and listed in these particular expense categories in regards to the receipts. When do we send the consent to use form and how? The client submits everything through the app. Typically, if a bank product return, the consent to use, consent to disclose. I'm sorry, here we go, right here. Here's the itemization of the supporting documents for the Schedule C. So I stand corrected. It was attached at the end. So I stand corrected. Anything you itemize will be itemized on this supporting notes for Schedule C form that's attached automatically. When we do the consent to use form, when do we send it? So in a bank product return, the consent to use and consent to disclose forms are automatically signed when doing a bank product form. Other than that, you should be getting those signed some type of alternative way. So if this client is submitting their information through the app, I always sent a client intake form for them to provide me their general information anyway. Also, I've been told in the past that this form would suffice, but like I said, I would always use my better judgment in regards to that. I would always send them some type of form saying, hey, you know, I submitted you my tax payment documents. I consent for you. I provide you consent to do my taxes, and I acknowledge that I will have to be responsible for paying you for doing my taxes. So next question was, when a client is due for payment to file, do they pay it up front? They can, if you want them to pay it from front, if they owe. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. If they owe, you can attach their credit card or bank account information on what's called the 1040V. I think it automatically populates if they owe. I don't think it's going to populate because this return doesn't owe. But there's a payment form that you can provide to them that they can either go online and pay it themselves, or you can add their card or banking information to pay it directly from their bank or debit card, probably bank. But if not, you can just transmit the return. They pay you directly, and then they can use the file that's required to do that. So in order to show you guys how that works, let's just make a few changes on this return so I can see if I can generate that pay statement. Really quick. That should do it. Add on one. Now, based off of that information, this person should now owe. So now they owe. And now if I go to summary print, view print return, so now when I go through this print documents, I'll show you that document I was just referring to. Right here. 2020 form 1040V. This is where they payment voucher for individuals. You use this information, create an online account, pay by bank account, pay by card. And they can log in to the IRS website and do so here. They don't necessarily need that voucher if they create an account online and pay by card or bank account. And we set them up with payment ranges. When they log in to create their account online with the IRS, it will give them the option to create the payment arrangements. You put that on them, not on you. I wouldn't take on that responsibility for them. You just advise them how to do it and provide them the necessary information. You guys have any other questions? The additional notes added transmit to the IRS? Yes. Those notes do transmit to the IRS. How do you give someone an estimate? You can give them an estimate like I just did, walk through the return and do it that way. Or if you don't want to do all of that, you can use the refund calculator and do it here. So you can do taxpayer status, say the age. Is this taxpayer dependent? They have how many dependents? 2. They have a W-2. You can enter the wages, federal withheld. If they had another W-2 or multiple, you can add another W-2 here. Dependents that qualify for earned income credit, child tax credit. If there's any of this information listed, you can add that information. If not, you go on to the next. Deductions, if there's any deductions they plan on adding. Adjustments to income, if any. If not, that will be the estimate right here. Based off the information they provided, the information you entered, this will be the estimated federal refund. Yes, the document attachment feature is new this year. Do you collect any other fees if the client isn't using a bank product? Yeah, you can collect whatever fees you want. If you have an e-file fee, you have a prep fee, any fee, whatever fees that calculate in the system that you want to collect, you can collect up front. Can you go over bank products from the beginning? Sure. I mean, bank products is bank products. I don't know what you want me to go over other than make sure you select a bank product. But a bank product basically means that they're going to pay you from their tax return when it's funded. I meant when you're prepping someone's taxes, the tax fee at the end to be able to file, do they have to pay that upfront estimate price or prep fee? Yeah, if you're doing someone return and they're getting a refund, as long as it's over a certain amount, you can, using the bank product, whether it's Santa Barbara or Refund Advantage, you can collect your prep fees from their return. If the tax return is on average 700, what is my portion? What is yours / my portion? I would direct that question to whoever invited you to the call. Is that without fees? What are you referring to? Is what without fees? The estimate, yes, the estimate was without fees. The estimate was based on the amount the federal with refund that was getting back. Any other new features? Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Any other new features that you may or may not miss, I would just run through practice return to see those new features, because I haven't gone through it entirely myself. I just go through the things that are most frequently used in the return. So, just running through a basic quick return. How do you have a scenario with do you have a scenario with unemployment and self-employed? This one had the opposite of adding a W-2. You would just add, so I can do that really quick if you want me to. I can delete the W-2, go to unemployment, add the unemployment. I don't know if I'm gonna enter the right one. Say they had 25, say 15, say like 12,000 for the year. Let's say they were responsible and paid taxes. Unemployment, let's say state of Texas, for the sake of it. PWC. Right. And that's a 1099-G. Once I click continue, that will be A W-2, oh, that would be, this would be a scenario of a unemployment and a Schedule C. So I just delete the W-2, added the unemployment. Now I have a Schedule C and unemployment on this return. Do you charge for estimate? Yes, maybe no. It just depends. Most of the times when I start a return, I don't do estimate. I tell them up front, I don't do estimate, I do taxes. So if you want to file your taxes, I'll file your taxes for you, but I don't do estimate. Yes, estimates are more for marketing tactics. Get them in to close them. That's if you say, hey, free estimates, you market free estimates, and they come in, you really getting them in to close them. You're getting them in just to say, hey, this is what I can get you back. All right, see you later. You're really just doing it to get them in. What do you tell someone that asks you your upfront fees and how much for their taxes? What I tell someone about my fees, and my fees are calculated based off of the forms that I use to prepare their tax return. And my base fee is XYZ. So if my base fee is $400, then I'll tell them my taxes, it would start at $400. And based off the fees that calculated based off of the forms, that's what our fees would be. So if you look at your fee summary and you show these itemized fees, it'll show you, where those fees are coming from and what forms you use. So each one of my fees are based off of the forms used. That's how I say it. Can you show how to add discounts? Yeah. So if you wanted to add a discount, you could do it manually by just writing it, typing it, and changing it. Or if you wanted to create a discount line, you can do that as well. Come in here and put -$100, and that's your discount. And it shows it itemized on the actual return. So when you look down here at your fees, when you look at the invoice, let's say print the invoice, it'll show them the discount code and all of that. Do you charge fees to check a new ERO? Yep. No, I don't. A new ERO mean you're already charging a fee. You're charging your service bureau fee. You charging, whatever other fees you want to charge them. But if you want to charge them something because you are, I will leave that up to you how you plan to charge fees. So here we go right here. So it shows all the forms. It shows the discount. Shows that fee here. What do you suggest using for audit fee? I don't suggest any. I'm as far as audit fee, whatever you charge is what you charge. I don't have any suggestions in regards to how you charge or what you charge. Is there a fee sheet? I per se don't have a fee sheet. I typically just increase based off of the market. So whatever my market analysis is for my area based off the fees, I kind of just go through and charge again based off of the form and based off of whatever I have see fit. So every year I may edit my fees based off of what I see fit in regards to that. Let's say I have a return I'm preparing that is complicated. Is there a way I can consult you? That would be a question outside of this. Typically, again, I that's the first time I've been asked that question several times, but as far as consulting me, that's a whole nother thing. I wouldn't even, yeah, I wouldn't even get into that. I would defer you to tax training. When would you use the audit fee? Audit fee can be done based off of, whatever type of return you want to do. You can put an audit protection on every return if you want to. It's totally up to you. Again, please keep your questions directed towards how to do a tax return or things in this scenario. These questions aren't for me to give you advice on how to charge people or how to or when to. These questions should be directed towards how to do something in the system. Can you go through sorting client status? When you say sorting the client status, yeah. Status is right here. You can click this button up or down right here, and it'll sort the status based off of if it's transmitted, accepted, in progress, deactivated, whatever. Just click this button, this button here. Can you please repeat the Uber part? The Uber part is just adding the 1099. That's it. So I can go in there. I can show you how to add a 1099. So going into federal 1099 NEC, click add. If I have another one, let's say I delete, if I had another 1099 NEC, add 1099 NEC, enter the information on there, just like you would for W-2. Once it gets done, it'll ask you if you want to carry it over to a Schedule C. You click yes, then it takes you to the Schedule C. Oh. How to set up fees, what screen to use, how to set up fees. So again, I went to the fees. So under configuration, fee setup. This is where you can add your fees under fee setup, under configuration. You can edit your prep fees, edit these fees here under your forms. The way to upload documents. So uploading documents for a taxpayer, if you've sent them an invite to create the customer portal, once they upload documents, it'll show here under scan documents. So if you want to upload some documents to it for them to see, you can click upload documents as well. If you click send documents for them to sign, it'll automatically populate and upload here. That should have answered both of those. Where do you scan documents? Where do you upload documents? So if someone owes and you need to get paid up front, they have enough money to pay you, but not what they owe. What happens? That's on you. Your job is to get paid for your services. Now, whatever they owe the IRS and they don't got enough money to pay the IRS, hey, that's on them. But if they want their taxes filed, they need to pay you. Someone asked, do I like the client portal? I'm trying to, yes, I prefer the client portal over the app all day. Especially when it comes to it makes it easy for signing, especially if it's a remote client. Of course, I use another process to receive their documents outside of the client portal to even initiate the return. But anything else other than them sending me stuff, I do like the client portal versus the app. The difference between the client portal versus the app is if a taxpayer filed their taxes at any other tax office other than yours in the prior year, and they use that app, and let's just say they call you and say, hey, I want to do my taxes, and you send them the link for the app, but the app is already on their phone, you got to go through you don't, first of all, you're not going to know that. And then in order for you to receive their documents, they have to delete the existing app, use your link, create a new account, and download the app again. So it's just kind of redundant. So a lot of people that use the app, use the software, it just says a lot. Why is your EIC checklist says not answered correctly? Where you see that at? Why are you? I probably could have made some changes on the return. And I have to go back and make it. So I made some changes on the return, so I may have to re-answer some questions, but right. So anytime you change a document, like I deleted the W-2 or and added a 1099 or unemployment, anytime you delete a document or make some changes, you got to come back in here and re-answer these questions. So right now, they do not qualify for earning credit because their AGI, earned income, is less than or equal to 0 because they have unemployment is more than the Schedule C because the Schedule C is probably negative. Yeah. So they don't have any earned income based off the expenses I have here. So if I delete some expenses, let's say remove all expenses, then they would have some taxable income. Unemployment does not count as taxable income. It's not income, it's unemployment. You didn't work to get it. You worked to get it, but you didn't work to get it. Silver lining. So now EIC should qualify based on me just using the NEC income. So yeah, there's my AGI. Let's look at here, make sure these are all answered. So now I qualify because I now have earned income based off of my Schedule C now being positive and not negative. Does the portal show multiple years for repeat clients? They when they log in, I think they create a new login each year for different years. So they wouldn't keep the same. I don't think it's the same portal every year. So you would have necessarily have, like, you don't have a portal, you just have scanned documents. The client has a portal, but each year they send them an invite. They create a login for the next year's portal. How do we get them to use the client portal? Is that for us only? You get them to use the client portal by sending them an invite. Invite them to use it. Create customer portal. Send the invite via email, send the invite via text. What other form do you use outside of the app account? That's not a question on how to do taxes in this software. Can you read each due diligence question and explain? Nope, I cannot. Once you go through the software, you need to read them and understand what they are for what they are. I've read these questions a million times, so I already know the answer. Can you run through estimates again? Sure. Refund calculator. Select the taxpayer status, taxpayer's age. Answer these questions accordingly. If they have a W-2, you select who the W-2 is for. Enter the wages, enter the federal withheld. If they have another one, you add it to, or leave it blank. If they don't have another one, click next. If any of this information pertains to them, you can add it. If they have any business income, business loss, you can add that in here as well. If they have any deductions, adjustments, boom, there we go. There it is. If you want to look at it as a 1040 view, you can see what it looks like as a 1040. If you want to switch it back to summary, you can. Here's the refund. Here's the amount, AGI, refund summary. There it is. If you want to start over for another person, click restart. It'll be cleared. Now you can do it for the next person. Does HelloSign work with this software? No. The next question was, how do you and why do you amend a tax return? I'll tell you how, I won't tell you why. Again, that's a tax question. I'm going to show you how to do it. So right now, we've transmitted the return and they come back and say, hey, well, I guess I do have to tell you how and why. If they come back and say, hey, I forgot a W-2, I need to file my tax return. I didn't give you all my W-2s. Well, I didn't give you my W-2. I just gave you my, in this case, I gave you my unemployment and my 1099, but I had a W-2 come in February or May or whatever. You'll go into amended return. Do you want to complete amended return? Yes. Original information, all of that information is here. So the original AGI, all of that information should already be in there. Review original column and override amounts. You would just re-enter all of that information from the previous year's return. Now to make corrections, correct original return. Now, since I'm making corrections, now the correction would be adding a W-2. I added all the W-2 information. Make sure I correct this. W-2 is added, continue. That's that. I don't have any other corrections to make. Now it's done. Explain the changes. Taxpayer added W-2 or forgot to file the previous W-2. Now, once I click print, it'll show you my 1040, 1040X, and the changes that took place. So here's my 1040X. Again, I did not go through and add that original stuff. I could have, but you would have to go in and add the original. Where you saw that original information, you got to go in and add it. And then it'll calculate the difference so that you know where and why this was done and what it was done for. So I'm gonna just delete that. W-2 deleted. How to do an estimate with Schedule C. Estimate with a Schedule C. It's going to be right here. So we had a household, and then 3, 3, 3. I'm not going to add a W-2 because I don't have one. Click next. I'm under other income, business income, 14, 55,000. Again, this will be profit and loss. So this will be profit after expenses or profit after expenses. So it's up to you. Whatever their profit loss statement shows. So there's their income, AGI, tax refund summary. Boom. That's it. Can you sign without a portal? Yeah, you can sign. They can sign in the office on the e-file page. Yeah, they can sign there. You can send it to them on DocuSign. You can send it to them that way. However you choose. You can sign many different ways. Can you amend a return without original return? So no, so if someone comes to you and say, I need to amend my return, but you did not do their prior year return, you have to do the prior year return first based off of the original tax documents from the original return. And then whatever documents that they did not file, you have to add those during the amendment. Would you print that and mail the IRS to the mail the amendment? Yes, no, you can e-file an amendment. Now, can you file your own taxes as an ERO? If you want to, you can, or you can hire me to do them. I'll charge you a nice fee. Do you charge a fee to amend tax returns? Yes, because I'm working. If I'm working, I'm getting paid. How to Medicaid waiver payments to care provider, which form is that's a tax law. That's a tax, how to do taxes question. How do I add the Medicare waiver payments to a care provider? Which form that is how to do taxes question. That is not a how to use the software question. All right, if there's no other questions, all right, well, what is the cadence of this training? Is it weekly? How many sessions have you had so far? I think I've done 6, 7 sessions so far. I think, I don't know, but it's every week, bi-weekly. Next week is my last session, the 17th. So next Tuesday, it's every Tuesday. Next Tuesday will be the last training session. To access the recordings, you would need to reach out to whoever invited you to today's call, and they can provide you that information. I have one last question. How to add tags for additional services. So tags can be done under configuration. You can create tags here. So if you want to add a tag, you can create a tag and say, hey, I asked it credit repair or whatever service you add. So if you say, hey, would you be interested in credit repair? And they say yes, you can add that tag to that return. Then, later on down the road, you can run a report for those tags, custom tag, I think it's a tag report, return tag report. the document import automatically to the return? No, the document is just, that's the portal is just strictly a document, somewhere to save the document. You still have to go in and do the taxes. All right. So that's it, guys. I thank you again. I'll see you next week. You guys have a great rest of your evening. Study, 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 practice, practice, practice. Get in the software and do practice returns just like I did today. That will help you guys with a lot of your questions, or it'll help you generate questions for next time. Talk to you guys next week. You guys have a good night.